The phoenix was the mythological bird who, by clapping its wings, immolated itself. Out of the ashes came an egg containing a new phoenix, born anew. The archetypal story represents the hope that from the ashes of our fragmented and sometimes self-destructive lives, we can arise into a more complete, whole, and constructive life. The Phoenix process, developed by Dr. Gerald Epstein, author of the Nightingale Conant bestseller, The Natural Laws of Self-Healing, is available to everyone to create such a new life. This process is comprised of 4 practices, which Jerry will give you the powerful theories behind and demonstrate to you how to incorporate them into your daily life. The process consists of, first, the 1-minute life repair system, which balances our sensations, feelings, mental life, and physiology whenever a challenging situation or belief confronts us. Second, the dis-emergency state, which dispels the false emergency state whose illusions promote negativity in our lives, and instead will align us with the sustaining life force, and promotes a physiology of life. Third, the yes or no phenomenon, which is derived from Jesus' admonition from the Sermon on the Mount, say yes or no, everything else comes from evil, and brings us an understanding of the source of all physical, emotional, and social disorders and how to repair them. And fourth, the Epstein mental imagery practice, which allows you to reverse challenges or conflicts in seconds by dissolving destructive beliefs and images and discovering in the ashes the remedy of a positive belief or image. In this compelling mix of studio and live recordings, you'll be treated to one of Jerry's most intimate seminars with his top students as he shares with you the groundbreaking research and practical applications that have become the Phoenix process. Easy to understand and use, bringing swift results, adaptable to everyone's individual needs, the Phoenix process is a revolutionary, comprehensive guide to true health and well-being, restoring our power to act in freedom and opening the way to true longevity. You will find it both profound and enjoyable every step of the way. And now, the Nightingale Conant Corporation is very pleased to bring you Dr. Gerald Epstein and the power of the Phoenix process.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jerry Epstein, and welcome to the Phoenix Process. And I'm coming to you again over the airwaves of Nightingale Conant in this audio series. Formerly, I've done for them the Natural Laws of Self-Healing. And for those of you who've had this program, the Natural Laws, you'll see that what we're going to present to you in this set will be complementary. It's something that came long after the Natural Laws came out to me, and I began using this process that I call the Phoenix as a new way of being, thinking, and acting based on the Western spiritual path that I believe will transform your life. So what you're about to hear is really brand new material, essentially, and is a nice addition to what you've already heard. And for those of you who haven't heard the Natural Laws, this, of course, will be quite enlightening to you. I am currently the director of the American Institute for Mental Imagery, a New York State Regents-chartered training center offering certification for all healthcare professionals, and as well as an educational center for the public. And so I teach courses in spiritual life and the application of the spiritual tradition of the West in an applied therapeutic process, which really informs my practice, which originally started out years ago. I started out as a psychiatrist and eventually became a psychoanalyst. And then in 1974, I had an epiphanous experience where I became a being of light momentarily through an experience of meeting a woman who became my teacher named Colette Abelkir Muscat in Jerusalem. And I was introduced to her in a fortuitous way, not expecting it to change my life in the course and direction of my career, and brought me in this direction of becoming a spiritual initiate of the Western tradition, as well as maintaining my work in healing and therapeutics to apply the tradition in a way to bring health and peace and well-being and balance to people who are suffering, and to possibly open a door, if you wanted to go further, to explore the spiritual path. And in that situation, I met a young man in Jerusalem who I engaged in a conversation, and he asked me what I did. And I said that I'm a psychoanalyst, and he said, "Oh, I did that for 3 years, 5 days a week in Paris, and got no results from what was troubling me. But here I met someone, and I did work over a period of a month, going once a week, and everything that I had tried to attain in the analysis, I took care of, and it was changed for me in this 1 month." And I scoffed because of my background in analysis, which takes such a long period of time to get results. And I thought that what could he achieve in a month? And he said, "Well, I could introduce you to her." And so I took the opportunity to do that because I was still somewhat open-minded, even though I was engaged in the Freudian perspective. So he introduced me to this woman. I came to meet her. And as I sat there with her in the first minute of our meeting, I said to her, "I understand that you work with this man in doing a process that he told me he did with you called mental imagery or waking dream, and I never heard of anything like that." And without giving her a chance to interject, a sudden flash of insight came to me. And I said, in 1912, Freud wrote a paper on beginning the analysis for young analysts starting out to give them an orientation about how to proceed. And it occurs to me, that he gave the rule of free association to say whatever comes to mind without editing and without any hesitation and so on, to say it, whatever is going on, in the form of an image. And he actually told the analyst to say to the patient, "Imagine that you are riding on a train with the patient and that he is looking out the window and he's to tell you what he sees passing by him in the countryside as the train is moving." I said, he gave the rule of free association, which is the underpinning of psychoanalysis, as an image. And I was quite taken with my own insight. And she responded in this paradoxical way to me, a total non sequitur, quite unexpected. And she said to me, "In what direction does a train go?" Well, I was really taken aback, and it came as a shock, and I didn't know. I lapsed into my analytic mode, which was to wonder, what does she mean by that? This is a trick question. What kind of a question is this? What do you mean, what direction does a train go? I'm thinking all of this. I'm gripping the arms of the chair tightly with my hands. I'm getting white knuckles. I sit very stiff-backed, and I'm starting to sweat, and I know I have to give her an answer, and these thoughts are racing through my mind. I'm from New York, and I take the trains a lot, and I know the trains are going, obviously, in a certain direction. They're going straight, horizontally. And then, of course, I thought, but in Machu Picchu and in the Alps, the trains go up. And now I'm confused because now there are two possibilities. And now I begin to get into doubt, which is really a source of what we're going to talk about in the Phoenix process. And I know I have to give her an answer. And I'm sort of geared up for an emergency, that this is some sort of an emergency in which I'm going to be tested, evaluated, and judged. And, of course, we'll get to that in the Phoenix process as well. And I then have to give her what amounts to a yes or no answer, which is also part of the Phoenix process, about what direction does a train go. So finally, I pull myself together, and she's waiting patiently, and I shoot my arm out straight ahead like an intention. And I said to her, "Trains go in this direction." And I pushed my hand forward in a horizontal direction. Well, she looked at me and she said very sweetly and kindly, "And if we change the direction?" And she then raised her arm in a vertical direction. And at that moment, I became filled with light. And I became what I mentioned before as a light being. Light filled me inside and out, and I was in a pan-dimensional reality. I left this reality, and I became someone and something else altogether for that instant. When I recovered from it, the thought that came to my mind immediately was, I'm no longer a physician, I'm no longer a psychiatrist, I'm no longer a psychoanalyst, that there's a truth here that I must pursue, and I have to set my life course in this direction to do this work. And she said to me, "This was interesting to you. It appears that way. I can see the look on your face." I said, "You bet it is." And she said, "Well, would you like to learn more?" And I said, "Of course." So she said, "Come back tomorrow morning and we'll start work at 8 o'clock. And that was the beginning of my 9-year apprenticeship, of going back and forth 13 times over a 9-year period to get this, quote, official training as an apprentice in this work of mental imagery, which we're going to cover, of course, in the Phoenix process, as a new way of using the mind to harness our energies and to bring us into balance and into a state of dynamic movement, which creates for us a healing environment, a healing attitude, and creates new beliefs for us that brings us into the everyday life in a new way. The idea, of course, in all the work I do is to approach the everyday life in a new way so that you are not governed by the habitual patterns that you use to try to cope with the daily challenges that you meet and how to encounter the experiences that you're going to meet in your everyday social interactions in a new manner in which you take charge of your